Most people think tax policy is a budget story. A governor proposes a cut. Legislators argue about revenue. Economists fight over projections. The news declares a winner. That framing misses what's actually happening. Tax policy isn't a budget issue. It's competitive strategy. Because the United States isn't one economy playing by one set of rules. It's 50 states competing for people, for businesses, for investment, for talent. For a long time, that competition was pretty mild. It is about to get vicious. And a decision made in Florida this week just fired the starting gun. Here's what happened. Governor Ron DeSantis announced a plan to eliminate property taxes on Florida homesteads. A special session is underway to push it forward. Now stack that on what Florida already has. No state income tax. Texas has no income tax. Nevada has none. Tennessee has none. Imagine Florida adding, and we don't tax your home, on top of, and we don't tax your income. That's not a tax cut. That's a recruiting pitch aimed at every high earner, every retiree, and every business owner in America, and the other states cannot afford to ignore it. People already move for taxes. Over the last decade, Americans voted with their feet. California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, all bled population. Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Tennessee, all gained. And that was before anyone was talking about killing property taxes. Now, I want to be honest about one wrinkle in Florida's plan, because it matters. DeSantis built in a catch. If you move to Florida after the law passes, you may have to wait up to 5 years before you qualify for the full homestead benefit. That's deliberate. He's trying to reward the people already there without triggering a stampede at the border. But think about what that actually signals. Florida is so confident this benefit is valuable that it's rationing it. You don't put a velvet rope in front of something nobody wants. And here's the opening that creates. If Florida is going to make newcomers wait 5 years, then the state that welcomes them on day one becomes the obvious alternative. That's the lane Arizona, Texas, and Tennessee can drive straight through. Whatever the fine print, the direction is clear. When you lower the cost of owning, you raise the value of owning. Picture two states, identical in every way. One taxes your income and your home. The other taxes neither. Which housing market gets more attractive? It's not close. Demand flows toward the place where ownership costs the least over time. That's good for homeowners who watch their equity hold. It's good for investors who see opportunity. And it's good for builders who suddenly have a reason to break ground. More construction, more lending, more work for contractors, architects, engineers, and suppliers. The effect ripples straight through the local economy. And here's something people get backwards. They assume businesses show up first and people follow. Usually it's the reverse. People arrive first. Commercial real estate follows the rooftops. As population grows, you need retail. Medical offices, restaurants, warehouses, self-storage, hotels, office space. That's exactly how Texas and Florida built 2 decades of commercial development. Population creates demand. Demand creates projects. Projects create jobs. Jobs attract more people. The cycle feeds itself. The corporate version of this is already in motion. Major companies have moved out of California, Illinois, and New York into lower tax states. And the calculation is shifting. Companies compete for talent. Talent looks at total cost of living. If your employees keep more of their paycheck and pay less to own a home, recruiting gets easier. That's a real competitive edge for any employer in a low-tax state. Expect another wave of headquarters moves and regional expansions to follow the people. No group feels this more than retirees. A retiree often owns the home outright and still gets a property tax bill every single year on a fixed income. Eliminate that and you've just handed them a raise, thousands of dollars a year, back in the household budget. That is rocket fuel for retiree migration. Yes, Florida's 5-year waiting period blunts some of that for Florida specifically, but it doesn't blunt the trend. It just redistributes it to whichever states offer the benefit without the wait. And retirees don't arrive empty-handed. They spend, they use services, they support local businesses and community organizations. Retiree migration brings an economy with it. Now here's the piece almost everyone overlooks. The next decade isn't really about taxes, it's about infrastructure, artificial intelligence, data centers, power generation, water, advanced manufacturing, semiconductors. All of it is hunting for the same 5 things: land, power, water, workforce, and a government that won't get in the way. The states winning the competition for people and businesses are the same states that will win the competition for infrastructure. Population growth justifies expanding the grid. A bigger grid supports industry. Industry pulls in data centers. Data centers pull in technology investment. Technology investment pulls in more talent. Every link reinforces the next. This is exactly why a place like Arizona matters. Constrained power. A semiconductor corridor already forming, and room to compete on policy. The race for capital is quietly becoming a race for infrastructure. Of course, there's a serious objection here, and it deserves a serious answer. Property taxes fund local government, schools, police, fire, roads, parks. Those obligations don't vanish because the tax does. True. But there's a difference between static thinking and dynamic thinking. Static thinking assumes nothing else changes. You remove the revenue, and that's the end of the story. Dynamic thinking asks what happens next. If a state pulls in more residents, more businesses, more construction, more spending, then revenue from sales taxes, business activity, and development can climb to fill part of the gap. Will it fully replace what's lost? That depends on the state, and it's a real question. But it deserves an honest debate, not a reflexive, we can't afford it. There's a deeper consequence hiding in all of this: education. For generations, we've tied school funding to property values. Home prices rise, school revenue rises. Most people just accept that as the natural order. But should a child's education really depend on the assessed value of the houses around them? Property tax reform forces that question into the open. Maybe schools get funded through statewide formulas instead, or consumption-based revenue, or new models we haven't tried yet. Whether those are better is a genuine debate, but big reforms usually only happen when the old system is under pressure. This is how that pressure starts. So picture where this leads. Imagine Florida, Texas, Tennessee, and Arizona all racing in the same direction. No income tax, shrinking property taxes, business-friendly rules, aggressive infrastructure investment. You'd get a concentration of people, money, and economic activity unlike anything in modern American history, because capital clusters, talent clusters. Once a region gets momentum, success compounds on itself. The states that build the most attractive home for capital become the economic powerhouses of this century. The ones that keep treating capital as something to harvest get to watch it pack up and leave. The competition has already started. Most policymakers just haven't noticed yet. The ones who notice first win.